right. So far we are looking at drawing this little vase, this little bottle. And I literally have pulled up on Pinterest on my phone, which you cannot see, bottles of every shape and size. And I feel like this turned out looking more like it was a light bulb than a vase, but I've been watching a whole lot of Joanna Gaines lately, and she just put stuff in vases. So I was like, let's draw a vase. Boom. It's very hard to get the lines correct for having them even when you have to be set back from your picture, and I don't want my head in the camera, so you're going to see me erase a lot because I'll hold it up or stand over it to check to see if it's even, and looking at it now, I can see it's not. So, but from my perspective, it was. So that's all good. It doesn't really matter. This isn't something that's precious. This is just getting something on paper. And I have made the decision that I'm going to draw a paper boat inside of here. At first, I was thinking of putting pussy willows or flowers coming out, and then I was like, why can't I do both? So every time you see me hold it up, that is me trying to fix to see if it's actually level and looks right. Well, there's that. And anytime you see a long pause, and I have sped this up, unfortunately, it's me going to look up some kind of reference, because as much as I would love to have all the information in my brain, I think it is impossible to carry it around where you're seeing it 24/7. So it's very handy. In my art room, I have tons of reference books, and access to the internet is most valuable. Anything is made up of basic shapes, just like a boat would be, and this is triangles. So, a little bit of squarage and rectangles. But I'm going to keep drawing for a bit because I think this goes on for quite some time. You're welcome. But yes, pretty soon I think I put the pussy wills in. That is my favorite eraser. That little bad boy can get into anything. This paper turned out to be a little different. It was great to sketch on, and I loved smearing the pencil, but I was not a fan of painting on it. It is 100% cotton. Mossery is the company. I tried it because another watercolorist recommended it, and most of the time I've noticed papers have some type of film on them that you have to kind of get rid of. You do a wash on first, and I was surprised how much underbleeding, if that's the right word, was happening with this. It didn't sit. Like, I love watercolor papers where the colors will sit for like a good 20, 15 seconds. It will give you time to get your wash on and move things around or add colors. And I was surprised that this one did not have that. It just immediately sucked it up. It's like it was hungry. And I could see the textures. Oh, I decided to mess around with smearing the giving a little shadow work before I paint over it, because I was going for that look, and this is just investigating the paper. And that is a blender, and that little tool I was using it's kind of like a sandpaper on a stick, and I don't know the actual name of it. I just call it sandpaper on a stick. Um it's come in every art kit my entire life, and I didn't know what it was used for until recently. 44 is great. Um, yeah, you can smear your lines. You don't have to use your finger. You can get in the crevices. It's pretty baller instead of using like a Q-tip. And you can sharpen it up, which is cool. And you can also do pencils and stuff on it if you want to, but I use it mostly for that. I can let you enjoy the rest of this amazing drawing. I'm pretty sure the pussy willows are coming up, and I will be back in a minute. All right. So, this is me setting up to figure out my color palette. I would love to tell you that I do this like all the time. I do not. Most of the time, I would say 50% of the time, I go just pick a color and start. And sometimes I have the thought in my head of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, rainbow. Sometimes I try really hard to stay with like monochromatic and just blues and not let it get so out of control. But out of the gate in my mind, I saw this as being blue water and then brown pussy willows and white, and the boat being paper. So there's a lot of brown and blue in my head already. So the first color I've done up there at the top is the Mayan blue. The second color underneath it is Viridian. And I think that's Mummy Appetite. Now I'm going to tell you that I never say stuff right. And I will try to put something in here later so you can see the names of everything. I still mispronounce my children's names, so there you go. That green I just put is Chromy Green Oxidite, I think. I always use Daniel Smith watercolors. I've been using them for many, many, many years now. And that is the spinny wheel right there from Roblox. It's this nice gentleman in Florida that makes them, and he has all kinds of different ones. I don't regret buying it, but it has made me quite a bit of a hoarder. That is praline green that I just used. I'm just going through colors that remind me right now of what the jar would look like if it was filled with water. That Mummy Appetite is one of my absolute favorite browns when you mix it with indigo. It's gorgeous for hairs. I love it for hair on a character, or just to darken instead of using black. It's better to use indigo. Um, it's better to stay away from the blacks, in all truth. I am searching for another color that is, I call it Piedmont Gen. Another, like the question mark, like question mark? I wrote them down and they're labeled, and I still say them wrong. I will look them up and try to put them in later. And if anybody has questions, they can ask me if I don't look them up. And that bad boy is Queen Coral. That is actually a pink. And I am mixing it with the blue to get that purple at the top, which is pretty. Yeah. And I'm writing it down. I have a bunch of those little cards laying around so I can see the colors before I go into that. That's Naples yellow. That one I spelled right. Yay. Go me. I'm writing myself notes because I wouldn't know otherwise. If you see my little paper, it's like scribbled and there's like arrows. I'm crushing it. Mixing that beautiful yellow with that, what doesn't even look on the screen like pink to me. It looks orange, but it is a pink-ish. It gave it a nice orange tone. Same thing, just mix the Mayan with the, which actually that's Mayan mixed with cobalt teal at the top. And I mix that with the Queen Coral, got a nice little purple. That's Naples yellow with Viridian for a very soft green. This is all in my endeavor before I realized what the paper was going to do. The paper, the best way I can describe it is like when I work, and it's a little bit out of focus. It's not focusing, but you will get the gist. Um, Typically you can lay down a wash and it will just sit there, but this just like sucked it up immediately, which 100% cotton paper does. I don't think it's treated at all, and I had to work really fast, and I found that I had to go super heavy and many, many layers to get the look I thought I wanted. It definitely was a look I not used to doing. In my next video, I'm going to try and use my favorite paper, which just works completely different. And I found like the darker I went, it actually looked better on this paper, which I don't do. I couldn't do like my typical glazes, and then I had to stop in between a lot to dry it. And one of the things you can check for between glazes is you don't want it to be wet or cold. So like if you think it's dry and then you put your hand on it and it's cold, that is still wet paper. So this is where I'm starting. I'm like, what's going on? Like, it doesn't lift. Oh, that was so frustrating. Oh, I did not like that. Did not spark joy. And I'm kind of getting pissed here. I can tell. Because I was like, I, when I went to lift it, it moved it and it like put a mark. And I was like, that shouldn't have happened. Now I'm mad. So I've decided that I'm going to get everything wet and see how it reacts after that, because I am not liking how it reacts whenever it's just straight to cold paper and it's not precious. So when you're working with something that's not precious to you, it's easier to just do whatever you want versus like you're doing something for a client or you have this idea in your head that you cannot screw up. Oh, I've decided I'm going to lay down some yellow as a background. Yeah, I'm super ticked at the paper now. I can tell. I'm like, this is not working. Because I want the whites to come through and it wasn't working the way I wanted. I knew I couldn't leave white spaces because it was spider webbing. And this is one of the challenges when you work with new papers. You just kind of have to figure out how to make it work for you, which is kind of delicious because it's an opportunity to try a new technique or a new style that maybe you didn't know you could do. Because I'm so used to floating on top of the colors. This definitely was not a float scenario. This was a suck it up scenario with spider webbing, and this might be stuff you wouldn't notice going into it, but these are quality watercolors and they should be able to lift, which tells me it's the paper. I just have to work with it a different way. Okay, so this is where I started to realize I had to put it on thicker for this to show correctly. And it was looking really nice when I put it on harder, where I wouldn't typically do that. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen with this book or how I'm going to use it. The frustration was the learning curve of this paper was different because I had a different expectation, I think. Hmm. Okay, so we're going to talk about what I'm about to do. So I'm using the indigo. I think that's Payne's Gray Blue. And the spider webbing is just really getting on my nerves. So I've decided to just do some. Where I should have started in the first place was seeing how the paper takes marks. So I highly suggest before you take to doing new watercolor paper that you do this. You go and you see how they blend and how it eats the water, if it floats. And I'm seeing that it doesn't do any of these things, and I'm frustrated because I'm starting to like it, which means it's becoming precious. And when it becomes precious, you don't want to mess it up. And I need it to stay not precious. So that's why you're seeing that crap at the bottom. It's just little markings to see how it's working and what I could have done differently had I gone into it doing this first. So, this is completely out of order. It wasn't intended to be something hard. It just happened. So now I'm adapting and realizing, okay, if I like it, I can scan it, but it's got so much texture on this paper. And I'm usually a hot press girl. Like, I like to have the smooth surface, the Illustrator paper, and texture does not excite me. And there's so much of it that's also throwing me off. So there's that. And that's what you're seeing there is I'm like, inside I'm mentally cursing that I didn't start there, even though there's like 100 pages in this book. I'm like, page one must be beautiful. But that's okay. Now, one of the things I like to do in between is to go through and take back some of my lines. Since I did a wash over it initially, you can't erase once you've wet it down. So they were pretty in there to begin with, but this is just bringing back some of the details that are on the corners and where the intersections are. Just doing a little line work on it to help that out. So this is out of focus. You're going to notice that. And why I kept it is interesting. So I'm using a Copic white paint there. You put in from Copic markers, but it's like a paste almost. And the only reason I kept this is to show you that when I'm painting, I unfocus my eyes a lot. And what's funny to me is while I was painting this, I literally did this with my eyes. And for some reason, I didn't hit the thing that makes it focus for you, but it gets the point across that sometimes you have to unfocus your eyes to see things better. And I love how you really can see the white now as it goes on. It really brings everything forward with the Pussy Willows, and it makes me extremely happy to see it. So, no, it's not a mistake that I left in here. Yes, it was a mistake that I didn't tap the little screeny DB and make it focus for some weird reason. But don't worry, it comes back into focus in a minute. Or maybe. Regardless, this is a trick I do all the time is I unfocus my eyes while I'm painting so I can see what needs to be done differently because I want the white to come forward and I want the dark to recede. So just wanted to let you know that's a little trick you can do. And last thing I always do is try to go through with either a pencil or some color pencils to just add a little bit more dimension and color and make it pop. So that's what I'm doing here. I always have a little tiny pencil sharpener on hand to get going and just adding more detail with the color pencils.